The Vanishing Fleet. Admiral Elena Reyes stood motionless on the bridge of the EF's Dauntless, humanity's flagship and pride of the Earth fleet. Through the panoramic view screen, she watched as her 12 vessels moved into formation against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling atmosphere. The gas giant's enormous presence dwarfed even their most impressive warships, a humbling reminder of how small they remained in the grand scheme of the universe. All ships report ready for the slipstream test, Admiral, announced Commander Jackson, her executive officer. His voice carried the typical military precision, but Reyes detected the underlying tension. Everyone felt it. Very good, Commander. Reyes clasped her hands behind her back, a habit from her academy days. Begin final approach to the anomaly. The anomaly had appeared 3 months ago, a strange distortion in space-time discovered by a routine mining survey near Europa. Initial probes sent into it had disappeared without transmitting data, but the energy readings suggested possibilities that Earth couldn't ignore. In a galaxy where humans were still newcomers, any technological advantage could secure their future. The Dauntless's engines hummed as they approached the shimmering curtain of energy that rippled against the starfield. Visible only through special filters, the anomaly resembled heat waves rising from hot pavement, except these waves bent light across the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Slipstream drive spooling up to 90%, reported Lieutenant Commander Sakamoto from the engineering station. Quantum matrices are stabilizing. The slipstream drive was humanity's newest achievement, a propulsion system that could fold space in ways that made conventional faster-than-light travel look primitive. This would be its first field test with multiple vessels. Signal the fleet to synchronize their drives with ours, Reyes ordered. Execute on my mark. As the countdown began, Reyes thought of her family back on Earth. Her husband Marco and their daughter Sophia would be watching the mission broadcast with a 17-minute delay. She had promised Sophia she'd bring back something interesting from the space ribbon, as the 8-year-old called it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. The slipstream drives engaged simultaneously across all 12 ships. The familiar hum escalated to a deep resonant tone that vibrated through the deck plates. On the view screen, space itself seemed to fold around them as the fleet approached the anomaly. Anomaly interaction in 3 seconds, announced the science officer, her voice tight with concentrated professionalism. When the lead edge of the Dauntless touched the anomaly, everything changed. The ship lurched violently. Warning klaxons blared as displays flickered and went dark before emergency power restored them. Report, Reyes demanded, steadying herself against a console. The anomaly is reacting to the slipstream field, the science officer shouted over the alarms. It's creating some kind of recursive loop in our drive systems. Commander Jackson's console erupted in sparks. The other ships are reporting the same phenomenon. The Canterbury is being pulled deeper into the anomaly. Reyes watched in horror as the distortion expanded, engulfing ship after ship. The laws of physics seemed to surrender as space twisted around them. Cut power to the slipstream drive, she ordered. Systems not responding. Sakamoto called back, fingers flying across her controls. The drive is caught in some kind of resonance pattern. The view screen showed impossible colors as Jupiter's massive form warped and stretched before them. The last thing Admiral Reyes saw before consciousness slipped away was the fleet, her fleet, being swallowed by a vortex that shouldn't exist. Back on Earth, 17 minutes later, Mission Control watched in stunned silence as all 12 ships vanished from their sensors. One moment the fleet was there. The next, nothing. Not even debris. The search lasted months. Every available resource was directed to finding Admiral Reyes and her fleet. Probes were sent, expeditions mounted. Nothing was found. Eventually, with heavy hearts, Earth declared the missing ships and their 5,000 crew members lost in the line of duty. But the universe rarely allows for proper mourning. 6 months after the disappearance of Reyes' fleet, humanity made first contact with the Arxian Collective. The diplomatic exchange started promisingly. The insectoid species seemed interested in cultural exchange and trade. That lasted exactly 8 days. On the 9th day, Archean warships appeared in orbit around Mars, their technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. The colony of New Armstrong, population 50,000, vanished under focused particle beams before they even realized they were under attack. Earth mobilized its remaining fleet, but the outcome was never in doubt. For every human vessel destroyed, the Archeans lost nothing. Their shield technology rendered conventional weapons ineffective, and their propulsion systems outmaneuvered everything humanity could deploy. President Alvarez addressed the United Nations Security Council in an emergency session as reports of Archean ships approaching Earth poured in. "We face an enemy of overwhelming technological superiority," he stated grimly. "Conventional military resistance will only result in more civilian casualties. I am ordering our remaining forces to disperse and transition to guerrilla operations." Within a week, the Archean flag flew over every major Earth city. The occupation had begun. General Maya Williams, formerly of the Earth Fleet Marines, crouched in the abandoned subway tunnel beneath Old New York, listening to the steady drip of water from rusted pipes. Around her, 24 resistance fighters cleaned weapons and checked equipment by the light of portable lamps. "Status report," she demanded as her intelligence officer approached. "Not good," Captain Chen replied, his voice low. "Archean patrols have doubled in sectors 3 through 7. They're using those new biosensor drones. They can detect human pheromones now." Williams cursed under her breath. 5 years of occupation had taught humanity harsh lessons about their conquerors. The Archeans learned and adapted with frightening speed. What about the labor camp at the old MedLife building? Security's tighter than ever. After last month's breakout, they've installed sonic barriers. We can't get within 100 meters without being incapacitated. Williams rubbed her temples. Every small victory seemed to result in harsher conditions for the civilian population. The Archeans had mastered the art of collective punishment. "And our friends upstairs?" she asked. Chen's expression darkened. The Collaborationist Council issued another statement urging all free humans to turn in resistance members. "They're offering extra rations and exemption from labor duties." "Traitors," spat a young fighter from the corner. Williams couldn't blame the kid for his anger, but reality was more complicated. "Survival makes people do terrible things, Rivera. Remember that." She unfolded a faded paper map of Manhattan. "They never used digital displays that could be detected or hacked. We need to focus on the priority targets, the processing center here, the command relay here, and..." The tunnel shook as distant explosions rumbled through the earth. Dust rained from the ceiling. "That's not one of ours," Williams said, already moving. "Everyone to emergency positions." Another explosion, closer this time, sent several fighters stumbling. Emergency klaxons, long silent, suddenly screamed to life throughout the tunnel system. "Those are the old civil defense warnings," Chen shouted over the noise. "They haven't worked since." He was interrupted by the crackle of their emergency radio. A voice, distorted but unmistakably human, broke through years of silence on the official military vans. "To all Earth resistance forces, this is Admiral Elena Reyes of the Earth Fleet ship Dauntless. Authentication code Sierra. Echo Victor Echo November. The fleet has returned. I repeat, the fleet has returned." Williams and her fighters stood frozen in disbelief. "Admiral Reyes. The fleet? After 5 years. It's a trick," Rivera insisted. "The Archeans mimicking." "That authentication code is valid," Williams interrupted, her mind racing. "And it's from the missing fleet protocols. The Archeans wouldn't know it." The radio crackled again. "All resistance cells, implement emergency protocol Lazarus. We are engaging Archean forces in orbit and at key surface installations. Stand by for coordinated counterattack instructions." Outside, the ground shook again as something massive impacted nearby. But this time, Williams felt something she hadn't experienced in 5 long years. Hope. On the outskirts of the solar system, Dr. Eli Rosen peered through the observatory telescope on the remote listening post hidden in Neptune's rings. As one of the few scientific outposts to escape Archean detection, Charon Station had become vital for monitoring enemy movements. "This can't be right," he muttered, adjusting the instruments. "Vega, come look at this." His assistant, a young woman who'd been only 17 when the occupation began, joined him at the console. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "These energy signatures." Rosen pointed to oscillating patterns on the display. "They appeared near Jupiter's orbit approximately 6 hours ago." Vega studied the readings. "Those look like slipstream drive signatures, but different somehow. More refined." "Exactly," Rosen said, "and there are 12 of them." Their eyes met as the implication sank in. 12 ships. The exact number in Rhea's lost fleet. "It's impossible," Vega whispered. "They vanished 5 years ago." Before Rosen could respond, the station's proximity alarms blared. Something was approaching. Fast. "Archean patrol?" Vega asked, already moving to initiate the station's stealth protocols. Rosen checked the sensor readings and froze. "No, it's an Earth fleet transponder." The communication system activated on its own, and a voice neither of them had heard except in historical records filled the small control room. "Charon Station, this is Commander Jackson of the EFS Dauntless. Stand by for approach and docking. Admiral Rice sends her regards and apologizes for the delay." In Earth orbit, the Archean command ship Inevitable Dominance detected multiple spatial distortions forming around the planet. High Commander Kizet was summoned from his regeneration chamber as the bridge crew scrambled to identify the threat. "Report," the commander chittered, his mandibles clicking in irritation. "Unknown vessels emerging from some form of dimensional fold," the sensor officer responded. "They do not match any known configuration in our database." On the main view screen, sleek ships appeared seemingly from nowhere. They resembled Earth fleet vessels in basic design, but with significant modifications. Their hulls gleamed with an unusual metallic sheen that seemed to absorb rather than reflect sensor scans. "Open communications," Kizd ordered. The humans had been subdued for years. These couldn't be Earth ships. The view screen shifted to show a human female in what appeared to be an Earth fleet uniform, though the insignia were unfamiliar. "This is Admiral Elena Reyes of the Earth fleet. Your occupation of Earth and its colonies ends today. You will withdraw all forces immediately or be destroyed." Kezet's compound eyes widened in surprise before narrowing with amusement. The name was familiar from historical records. One of the human commanders lost years before the invasion. "This deception is pointless," he responded. "The Earth fleet was dismantled 5 years ago. Surrender your vessels immediately." The human's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand, Commander. We're not asking." The transmission cut off abruptly as the unknown vessels accelerated toward the Archean defense fleet. Kaze turned to his weapons officer. "Eliminate these pretenders." But as the Archean weapons powered up, something unprecedented happened. The approaching ships seemed to phase in and out of reality, Archean targeting systems unable to lock onto them. The first volley of Archean particle beams passed harmlessly through the lead ship as if it weren't there at all. Then the newcomers returned fire. For the first time in 5 years, the Archean collective experienced something they had thought impossible. Fear. The unexpected defenders. Admiral Elena Reyes watched from the bridge of the Dauntless as her fleet engaged the Archean vessels orbiting Earth. For her and her crew, it had been only 4 months since they'd encountered the anomaly near Jupiter. 4 months of being trapped in what their scientists had termed dimensional suspension, a pocket of altered space-time where they existed out of phase with the normal universe. "Enemy vessels still unable to establish target lock," reported Lieutenant Commander Sakamoto. "Phase shift drives functioning at optimal efficiency." Reyes nodded. The technology they'd developed during their time in dimensional suspension was working perfectly. While trapped, Her fleet's scientists had studied the properties of their pocket dimension, eventually learning to harness its unique physics. The result was the phase shift drive, a modification of their original slipstream technology that allowed their ships to partially exist in multiple phases of reality simultaneously. Status of ground operations, Rise asked. Commander Jackson brought up a tactical display showing Earth's surface. Resistance cells are mobilizing worldwide. Our strike teams have successfully deployed to 16 primary targets. The Archean command structure is in disarray. They never expected an attack from orbit. Ray studied the display with mixed emotions. The Earth below was not the planet she remembered. Massive Archean structures dominated once familiar skylines, and vast processing facilities scared the landscape. 5 years of occupation had transformed her homeworld. The Archeans are adapting, announced the tactical officer. Their flagship is modulating its weapons to a dispersed frequency pattern. They are attempting to hit us across multiple phase states. As expected, Rise replied calmly. Execute Delta maneuver. The 12 ships of her fleet moved in perfect coordination, shifting their phase states in a choreographed pattern that the Archeans couldn't track. The enemy's modified weapons struck empty space as the human vessels seemed to blink in and out of existence. Return fire, Rise ordered. Target their propulsion systems. The Dauntless's weapons, conventional railguns and particle beams, modified with phase technology, struck the Archean flagship with devastating precision. The massive vessel shuddered as its engines failed, leaving it drifting in orbit. Admiral, Jackson said urgently, we're detecting a massive energy buildup in the Archean ground installations. They appear to be activating some kind of planetary defense system. Rise had anticipated this. Signal the resistance. Operation Sunbreak commences now. Across Earth's surface, resistance cells that had received Admiral Reyes' coded instructions days earlier sprang into action. Their targets, the power distribution nodes that fed the Archean defense grid. In what remained of London, Dr. Marcus Way led his team through the underground maintenance tunnels beneath the Archean regional headquarters. 5 years working as a forced laborer in their engineering division had given him intimate knowledge of their power systems. Here, he whispered, pointing to a junction box covered in alien script. This connects to the main conduit. His team worked quickly, attaching the strange devices dropped by stealth shuttles from Rey's fleet 3 days earlier. The technology looked both familiar and alien, clearly human in design, but incorporating elements no one on Earth had seen before. Is it true? Asked Sarah, his youngest team member, as they worked. The fleet's really been trapped in some kind of time bubble all these years. Way shrugged. That's what they're saying. For them, only a few months passed while we lived through 5 years of hell. Set for detonation on the global signal, instructed Way, checking the final connections. 90 seconds and counting. As resistance teams worldwide completed similar missions, General Williams led the assault on the Archean headquarters in Manhattan. Armed with weapons dropped by Reyes' fleet, phase rifles that could penetrate Archean armor, her fighters pushed toward the central command center. They're in complete disarray, Chen reported as they secured another checkpoint. Their communication network is failing. Williams nodded grimly. 5 years of occupation, and they never expected to be on the defensive. Complacency kills. The building shook as something massive impacted nearby. That's our air support, Williams said with a smile, courtesy of Admiral Reyes. Above them, sleek attack craft from the Dauntless strafed Archean defensive positions, their weapons shifting between phase states to bypass shields that had once seemed impenetrable. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Reyes received updates from ground operations with growing satisfaction. Status of the Archean fleet. 8 vessels disabled, 3 retreating, reported the tactical officer. Their flagship is attempting to restore power. Don't give them the chance, Reyes ordered. All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship's command section. The human fleet's coordinated barrage tore through the Archean vessel's once impervious shields, Secondary explosions blossomed along its hull as critical systems failed. "Admiral," Jackson said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Arxian flagship." Reyes nodded. "Put it through." High Commander Cast appeared on screen, his chitinous exoskeleton scorched from electrical fires burning on his bridge. "This is impossible," he chittered. "Your fleet was destroyed. Your species was conquered." "You're experiencing a common misconception, Commander," Reyes replied evenly. "We weren't destroyed. We were merely delayed." "You cannot hope to hold Earth," Cast insisted. "The Collective will send reinforcements. By then, it will be too late. You underestimated humanity's resilience." Reyes leaned forward. "The terms are simple: unconditional withdrawal from Earth and all human colonies. Any Arxian vessel or individual remaining in our system 1 hour from now will be destroyed." Hez's compound eyes flashed with alien emotion. "This victory will be brief, human. You have no conception of the forces you challenge. Perhaps. But today, Earth is free." Cut transmission. The screen went dark as Reyes turned to her crew. "Status of resistance operations. Global coordinated strikes successful," Jackson reported. "Arxian power grid is down. Their ground forces are cut off from Central Command." Throughout Earth's atmosphere, Arxian shuttles began emergency launches as their forces scrambled to evacuate. The occupation that had seemed unassailable hours earlier was collapsing with astonishing speed. In the bowels of an Arxian research facility beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Sophia Chen worked frantically to secure data before the aliens could destroy it. As the resistance team's science specialist, she had volunteered for this high-risk mission. The moment Admiral Reyes returned was confirmed. "They were studying us," she told her team commander as they downloaded information from alien terminals. "Not just controlling us, experimenting on us." The commander, a grizzled veteran named Rodriguez, kept watch at the door. "What kind of experiments?" "Genetic, neurological, psychological." Chen's face was grim as she scanned the files. "They were trying to understand human adaptability, our capacity for innovation under pressure." "Did they find what they were looking for?" Chen shook her head. "I don't think they expected what they found. Look at this." She pointed to a series of comparative graphs. Arxian problem-solving versus human under identical conditions. The Arxians are technologically superior, but their evolution favored hierarchical thinking. When isolated from their collective, their innovation rate plummets. Humans, on the other hand, she highlighted another set of data. Even under occupation, our innovation rates continued to climb. Rodriguez grunted. "So we scared them. Worse, we confused them. They couldn't understand why we kept fighting when victory was mathematically impossible." Chen downloaded the last files. According to this, they were preparing to classify humanity as a potential existential threat to the collective. "What does that mean?" "It means we weren't just facing occupation." Chen's expression darkened. "Given enough time, they would have decided to exterminate us." 1 week after the Dauntless's return, Admiral Reyes stood at a podium in what remained of the United Nations Assembly Hall. Representatives from resistance groups worldwide had gathered for the first global coordination meeting. "The Arxian fleet has withdrawn beyond Neptune's orbit," she announced. "Our long-range sensors indicate they're regrouping for a potential counterattack, but our intelligence suggests it will take them at least 6 months to marshal sufficient forces." General Williams stood. "6 months isn't much time to prepare." "It's all we need," Reyes responded confidently. "While we were trapped in dimensional suspension, we didn't just develop phase technology. We learned to understand the fundamental properties of space-time itself." She nodded to Commander Jackson, who activated a holographic display showing a massive construction project already underway in Earth orbit. "This is Project Aegis," Reyes explained, "a planetary defense system utilizing phase technology. Once operational, it will create a dimensional barrier around Earth and our colonies, one that Arxian ships cannot penetrate." Murmurs spread through the assembly. That's just the beginning, Rice continued. The technology we developed has applications beyond defense. We can rebuild our cities, restore our environment, and advance our civilization far beyond what was possible before. In the audience, Dr. Eli Rosen raised his hand. Admiral, you've mentioned dimensional suspension several times. Can you explain exactly what happened to your fleet 5 years ago? Rice exchanged glances with Dr. Sakamoto, who had transferred from engineering to lead the scientific investigation during their time away. The anomaly we encountered was a natural phenomenon, a fold in space-time, Sakamoto explained. When our experimental slipstream drives interacted with it, we were pulled into what we now understand was a pocket dimension, a bubble of space-time existing alongside our universe, but experiencing time at a different rate. For us, only 4 months passed, Rice added. During that time, we couldn't communicate with or return to normal space. Our scientists and engineers worked around the clock to understand what had happened and how to escape. The breakthrough came when we realized we could manipulate the properties of the pocket dimension, Sakamoto continued. By modifying our slipstream technology, we learned to control our phase relationship with normal spacetime. Eventually, we developed the ability to shift between dimensions at will. When we finally returned and discovered 5 years had passed, Rice said solemnly, "We found Earth under Archean occupation. But we also found something else, a resistance that had never surrendered. Your courage gave us the opportunity we needed to strike." Williams stood again. "What makes you think the Archeans won't develop countermeasures to your phase technology?" "They'll try," Rice acknowledged. "But we have a fundamental advantage. Their society is built on hierarchical obedience. Innovation happens slowly, methodically, from the top down. Humanity's strength has always been our ability to adapt, to think independently. That's what the Archeans couldn't understand and what they feared." 3 months later, Admiral Rice stood on the observation deck of the orbital station New Dawn, watching as construction teams completed another section of the planetary defense grid. Earth gleamed below, areas of devastation still visible, but gradually being reclaimed. Commander Jackson joined her, holding a data tablet. "The first colony ships are ready for departure, Admiral. The Mars reconstruction team launches tomorrow." Rice nodded. "And the Deep Space Monitoring Network? Operational as of 600 hours. We'll have advance warning of any Archean approach." They stood in comfortable silence, watching humanity rebuild. "They call it the silent victory," Jackson commented. 5 years of occupation ended in less than 48 hours. "Not silent for those who fought all those years," Rice corrected. "Not silent for those who didn't live to see it." Jackson nodded soberly. "The memorial service is scheduled for next week. President Alvarez asked if you would speak." "I will," Rice said, "but the heroes aren't those of us who returned. The true victory belongs to those who never stopped fighting, even when it seemed hopeless." As Earth continued its recovery, humanity looked to the stars with new purpose. The Archean threat remained, but something fundamental had changed. A species that had nearly been conquered had discovered its greatest strength, the unquenchable will to persist, to adapt, to overcome. And in the vast reaches of space, other civilizations took notice. The species that had survived extinction, that had reversed an overwhelming defeat, that had emerged with technology that defied conventional understanding. This species would not be underestimated again. In the quiet depths of her quarters, Admiral Rice finally opened the personal message from her husband that had waited 5 years for her return. Marco's face appeared, older than she remembered, lines of hardship etched around his eyes. "Elena," he began, voice thick with emotion. "They say there's a chance you might return someday. Most think it's impossible, but I've never stopped believing." He smiled sadly. "Sophia is 13 now. She's brilliant, Elena. So much like you. She's already working with the Resistance, designing communication systems they can't detect." Marco looked away briefly, composing himself. If you're watching this, you've done the impossible. You've come back to us. And knowing you, you've probably saved us all in the process." His eyes met the camera again. "We're waiting for you, Alina. We never stopped waiting." As the message ended, Rise wiped away tears. Time had been bent, lives had been changed forever, but humanity had endured. And in that endurance was the seed of something greater. A civilization that would never again be vulnerable, never again be conquered. The silent victory wasn't just the liberation of Earth. It was the realization that humanity's greatest strength had always been within. The capacity to face impossible odds and still find a way forward. Not through overwhelming force, but through ingenuity, adaptation, and the simple, stubborn refusal to surrender. The stars beckoned, and this time, humanity would meet them as equals.